Before the world began, there was only none, an endless, formless expanse of dark, swirling waters. Chaos reigned in this boundless void, where nothing had shape or purpose, and time itself was meaningless. Within none lay the potential for all creation, hidden like a seed waiting to sprout. No light pierced the darkness, no sound disturbed the silence. Only the restless movement of the primordial waters existed. From this infinite abyss, life and order would one day emerge, but for now, none remained the unfathomable cradle of the universe, holding the mysteries of existence within its timeless depths. Within the vast waters of none, all that would ever exist lay dormant, waiting to be called forth. Every star, every creature, every drop of life was but a spark of possibility hidden in the swirling chaos. Potential shimmered unseen, like seeds buried beneath an endless ocean, yearning for form. The gods, the earth, even time itself were mere whispers of what could be, scattered throughout the formless expanse. The spark of creation had not yet ignited. None held the universe's secrets within its depths, a paradox of infinite emptiness, teeming with the promise of everything yet to come. From the boundless chaos of none, a moment of brilliance shattered the eternal darkness. Ra, the first god, emerged, a self-created being, born of divine will and pure light. His radiance burned through the shadowy abyss, casting away the endless gloom and illuminating the waters of chaos. In this moment, light was born, and with it, the potential for life and order. As Ra rose from the depths, a solid form took shape beneath him, the Benben stone, the primeval mound that emerged from the swirling waters. It was the first land, a place of stability amid the endless void, and Ra stood upon it as the supreme creator. From this sacred foundation, he surveyed the chaos, his light driving back the darkness. Ra's arrival marked the birth of time, distinction between day and night, and the beginning of creation. He held within himself the power to bring forth all that would ever exist, a beacon of life shining defiantly against the chaos of none. His emergence set the stage for the divine and the mortal worlds alike, a promise that order could rise from disorder and light could prevail over shadow. From his own essence, Ra brought forth the first elements of creation. To shape the world, he created Shu and Tefnut. Breathing deeply, Ra gathered his divine power, and with a mighty act, he spat them into existence. Shu, as the god of air, held the heavens aloft, creating the space between sky and earth, while Tefnut, as the goddess of moisture, brought the life-giving waters essential for growth. Together, they became the balance of dry and wet, forming the foundation for a stable world. From Ra's very being, the cosmos began to take its first structured shape, but as they ventured into the uncharted expanse of none, the chaos engulfed them, and they became lost in its endless, formless depths. Their absence left the universe incomplete, and Ra, feeling their loss keenly, acted to restore order. From his divine power, he created his all-seeing eye, a manifestation of his will and vision. This radiant force scoured the chaotic waters, searching tirelessly for Shu and Tefnut. The eye's light pierced the shadows of none, finding the lost deities and guiding them back to Ra's side. Their return brought joy and balance, and from Ra's tears of happiness, humanity was born. This reunion with Ra marked the completion of the first cycle of creation, setting the stage for the gods to continue building the cosmos. With the balance restored, Shu and Tefnut continued the work of creation. Together, they gave birth to Nut and Geb. These two divine siblings embodied the next vital elements of the universe. However, the bond between Nut and Geb was so strong that it threatened to disrupt creation. Realizing the danger, Ra intervened, commanding Shu, the god of air, to forcefully separate them. Shu obeyed, using his immense strength to lift Nut high above Geb. She arched her body gracefully, stretching across the heavens, her dark form adorned with glittering stars. Below her, Geb remained, his body becoming the foundation of the earth, rich with soil and rock, teeming with the potential for life. The separation brought clarity and order to the cosmos. Nut's expanse above became the vault of the sky, where Ra would traverse in his solar bark, illuminating the world below. Geb, now distinct, held the fertile ground that would nurture humanity and all living creatures. Between them, Shu stood as the ever-vigilant pillar, holding the heavens apart from the earth, ensuring that chaos could not return. The balance between sky, earth, and humanity was thus established, weaving the fabric of existence. With the cosmos established and balance restored, Ra ascended as the supreme ruler of creation. He took his place in the heavens, traversing the sky in his radiant solar bark, bringing light and life to the world below. His daily journey marked the cycle of time. As day turned to dusk, Ra began his perilous voyage through the Duat, the shadowy underworld that lay beyond the reach of mortal eyes. In this realm of darkness and uncertainty, he battled the forces of chaos, who sought to devour the light and plunge creation back into disorder. Guided by the prayers of the living and aided by other gods, Ra's bark sailed through the 12 gates of the Duat, each representing an hour of night. His passage symbolized renewal as he brought light even to the darkest corners of existence. At dawn, Ra emerged triumphant, rising again in the eastern sky. His eternal cycle of death and rebirth not only sustained creation, but also inspired hope and reverence among gods and mortals alike, embodying the victory of order over chaos. From the union of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, the next generation of gods was born: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. These deities became the divine family, each embodying a specific aspect of the cosmos and taking on vital roles in upholding Ma'at. Osiris, the eldest, was given dominion over agriculture and the afterlife, ensuring the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. His role represented regeneration and the promise of eternal life. Isis, his devoted wife and sister, became the goddess of magic, healing, and motherhood, offering guidance and protection to both gods and mortals. Set, the god of chaos and storms, was tasked with challenges that tested the boundaries of order, representing the necessary tension that kept Ma'at dynamic. Nephthys, the goddess of mourning and transition, supported both life and death, assisting Isis in rituals and guiding souls through the afterlife. Together, their interactions and stories reflected the balance of creation and the ongoing struggle to maintain Ma'at in a world where order and chaos constantly intertwined. From this story, Egyptian life and death, the endless dance between chaos and harmony, and the cycle of renewal and rebirth begins. In the early days, when the world was young and filled with Ra's radiant light, the sun god turned his attention to the land he had shaped. The earth was lush with greenery, rivers flowed with life, and the sky sang with the voices of birds. Yet something was missing. Nothing yet existed to marvel at creation and to honour the gods who had formed it. Ra gazed down upon the world, his heart filled with a deep yearning. As he contemplated, emotion swelled within him, and from his eyes, tears of profound feeling fell to the earth below. Where his tears touched the soil, something extraordinary occurred. They transformed into living beings. Thus, humanity was born, shaped from the very essence of Ra's emotions. When the first humans opened their eyes, they found themselves surrounded by the beauty of Ra's creation. They stood in awe of the vast sky above, where Ra's blazing form sailed across the heavens, bringing light and life to all. The humans instinctively felt a connection to the great sun god and understood that they were born from his tears, a gift of his love and purpose. As they began their lives, picking fruits from the trees they danced among, and catching fish from the river they bathed in, they felt joy. So the humans sought to honour Ra and express their gratitude. They gathered stones from the rivers and piled them upon one another in an attempt for him to see their efforts. When these stones fell, they were undeterred. They dug clay from the earth and mixed it with the river water and began their building afresh. In these early days, the people worked together, driven by a shared desire to uphold the harmony of the world and to show their reverence for the god Ra. The piles of stone and clay began to take shape, and soon arose the first altars, humble places of worship beneath the open sky. Among these humans were the most determined of all, a group with a special calling, who sought to create a lasting tribute to Ra. They learned to shape tools from stone and wood. With these tools, they worked together to create the first temple dedicated to Ra. These early artisans, known as the builders of Egypt, believed their work was a sacred duty and viewed their craft as an extension of Ma'at, the divine order that Ra had entrusted to all humans. This grand temple became a central part of daily life, adorned with carvings of Ra's solar bark and the gods who served alongside him, a place where his light could shine down and connect the divine and mortal realms. As humanity grew and spread across the land, they came to understand more about the divine force shaping their world. They began to honour other gods who served alongside Ra, each with their unique roles in the balance of life. Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, was revered for teaching humans the art of recording their prayers and knowledge. Scribes dedicated their work to him, inscribing temple walls with hymns and records of Ra's greatness. Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and joy, was cherished as a bringer of happiness and abundance. Her name was invoked during celebrations and festivals held in Ra's honour. Geb and Nut, the earth and sky gods, were celebrated for their role in holding the world together, providing the fertile soil and the heavens that sustained life. Shu and Tefnut, the deities of air and moisture, were remembered as Ra's first children, whose union had created the balance of nature. In the temples, priests dedicated rituals to all these gods, understanding that their combined efforts upheld the harmony of the cosmos. Ra, ever watchful from his solar bark, was pleased with his creation. He saw the people thriving under the guidance of the gods and upholding the principles of Ma'at. Their temples and prayers were proof of their devotion, and their offerings were a sign of their gratitude. Yet, Ra also understood the fragility of his creation. He reminded the gods and humans alike that maintaining harmony required effort and vigilance. The first humans passed this wisdom down through the generations, teaching their descendants the importance of reverence, unity, and the sacred duty to preserve the world. Thus began the enduring relationship between humanity and the divine, a bond forged from Ra's tears and strengthened through worship, wisdom, and the pursuit of Ma'at. Though challenges and trials would arise in later days, the story of Ra and the first humans remained a guiding light, illuminating the path to harmony and balance. As humanity flourished, their gratitude towards Ra, the creator and sun god, began to fade. Once, they had worshipped him, respecting his magnificence and understanding their rank in the divine order of the cosmos. But with the advancement of generations, human beings liked their conditions. Food was abundant. Life was easy. With the prosperity, they became careless. They mocked Ra, whispering he had grown old and weak. They grew disrespectful about the other gods as well, eventually conspiring against the divine rulers. Ra observed this growing insolence with a heavy heart, but it was Hathor, the nurturing goddess of love, joy, and motherhood, who first took note of these misguided ways of humanity. She was once overjoyed at the chants and celebrations that echoed around the great temple built in her honour in Dendera. Now she noticed them speak ill of the values that she aided in nurturing. Deeply saddened, Hathor approached Ra, her father and the supreme god, to share her worries. Ra, burdened by age and disillusionment, already knew the humans no longer respected his authority. and fearing that their continued rebellion would bring disorder to the cosmos, he went to Nun, the primeval waters of creation, sharing his sorrow and anger. Then he summoned the rest of the gods for council. The gods were unanimous in their agreement. Humanity must be punished and their arrogance curbed. It was Hathor, who loved humanity, yet could not abide their disrespect, who offered herself to carry out Ra's will. She took on the form of Sekhmet, the lioness, ferocious and untamed. Her transformation was immediate and terrifying. As Sekhmet, her nurturing essence was overshadowed by a relentless thirst for vengeance. With fangs bared and eyes blazing, she descended upon humanity, unleashing divine wrath that no mortal could withstand. The fury of Sekhmet engulfed the land like wildfire, laying waste to everything in her view. The people's cries bounced off the barren desert, which now bore witness to a river running red and villages in flames. No longer the gentle goddess Hathor, Sekhmet revelled in destruction, hunting down the rebellious without mercy. What started off as divine justice spiralled into unyielding havoc. Ra watched in horror. To him, releasing Sekhmet was a plan to balance the world, but now the goddess posed an all-new threat, wiping out humanity entirely. The other gods looked on in alarm. They feared if she was not stopped, there would be no one left to worship them. Her golden fur glistened with blood as she tore through villages, her roars shaking the sky. Mortals fled, but her wrath was relentless. She became the storm, the punishment, the executioner. Ra had to act. But Sekhmet, lost in her bloodlust, ignored his commands. She was no longer a goddess of love, nor a servant of order. She was war incarnate. Desperate to save what remained of his creation, Ra devised a plan. He commanded his priests to brew vast quantities of beer, dyed red with ochre to resemble blood. By his order, the intoxicating mixture was poured across the land where Sekhmet hunted. The Lioness Goddess, still lost in bloodlust, saw the shimmering pools and believed it to be the spoils of her slaughter. Drawn by the scent, she drank deeply. The beer's power dulled her senses, her fury fading with every sip, her roars quieted, her claws stilled. Overcome, she collapsed into a deep sleep. When she awoke, the destruction had ceased. The air was silent. The rivers no longer ran red. Horrified by what she had done, she wept. Her tears flowed into the Nile, signalling both the end of her rampage and the rebirth of the land. Sekhmet was no more, and Hathor returned to reclaim her role as the goddess of joyous love and festivities. Now a warrior for humanity's continuance, instead of its destruction, she replaced the horror of deafening screams with music and laughter. Hathor's wrath on her followers was forgotten, and the mortals had been spared. But Sekhmet's rage will remain ingrained in their memory for eternity. From the very beginning, even the gods abided by certain rules. Laws written not in stone, but in the very fabric of creation itself. And at the crux of it was the god of the sun, Ra, ruler of the cosmos. He whose word was enough to govern the entire order of the universe. Among the divine beings that roamed the heavens and the earth were Nut, the sky, and Geb, the earth. They were bound together in an eternal embrace, their love so deep that the sky kissed the land, holding it close. This love was so heightened that it disrupted the very balance that Ra had worked hard to maintain. He saw their union as a threat. If Nut and Geb were allowed to bring forth children, what kind of powers would these children possess? So Ra spoke a decree, one that could not be undone. Nut shall bear no children on any day of the year. This single declaration sealed fate's course. At that time, the year held only 360 days. There was no second, no moment, and no space for Nut to bring life into the world. She wept, her sorrow stretching across the heavens, her pain reflected in the darkness between the stars. Within her, 5 divine beings waited to be born, trapped, forbidden from entering existence, and so the heavens fell silent. Desperate, Nut turned to the god of wisdom, magic, and time, Thoth. He was all-knowing, the keeper of divine secrets, the one who could see beyond what must be and into the realm of what can be. Great Thoth, Nut pleaded, Ra has sealed my children away. He has written my fate into the stars. You know the paths of destiny better than any. Do you know of a way to change my fate? Thoth considered this. He knew very well that he could not go up against Ra and challenge him directly, but there was always another way. A crack in the foundation of fate itself. Time, he said at last. Time is not as rigid as Ra believes. If no day exists for your children to be born, then we must create new days. And so he put the wheels for his plan in motion. Thoth travelled to the silver halls of Khonshu, the moon god who ruled over the shifting tides of night. Khonshu was powerful, but he was also playful, and Thoth knew exactly how to tempt him. You are a master of games, he said, a champion in your own right. But tell me, have you ever played against the god of wisdom himself? Captivated, Khonshu consented. The game was Sekhmet, a contest of strategy, foresight, and cunning, but Thoth was an opponent like no other. Each round he challenged him to a wager, a portion of Khonshu's light, for a promise of more glory. They played through the night, game after game, move after move, and while Khonshu was skilled, through every game, Thoth was patient. He saw patterns when others perceived chaos, as well as possibilities when others reached their limit. He won again and again. With each victory, he claimed a fragment of moonlight. Little by little, the pieces of night accumulated, until Thoth had gathered enough to reshape time itself. Khonshu, humiliated, could do nothing but watch as Thoth took what he had won and wove it into the heavens. 5 new days, days that were outside the perpetual cycle of a year. Beyond Ra's decree, days that belonged to no one but Nut. And on these days, fate was rewritten. On the first day, the heavens trembled as Nut's first child entered the world. Osiris was born, and he was a king. The golden light surrounding him meant he was destined for something great, and all the universe knew. He was to rule over the living and the dead, and became instantly revered from the moment he showcased his presence. The second day dawned, and Isis opened her eyes as an omniscient and omnipotent being. She was a goddess of magic, healing, and motherhood. From her first moment in this world, she understood the relationship that connected gods and mortals. She would become the keeper of sacred knowledge, a weaver of fate. On the third day, the world was filled with a storm, and Set stepped into the world. The air crackled with energy, the winds howled through the deserts. He was chaos, ambition, and raw power. Even as he took his first breath, the balance of the cosmos shifted. For Set would bring conflict, but also transformation. Nephthys, shadowed and mysterious, was born on the 4th day. The world grew silent as she stepped onto it. She was a living shadow who guarded the unseen, keeper of solitude. She became the one who strode through the worlds of the living and the dead. Her voice was soft, but her presence weighed heavy. On the 5th day, the falcons cried as Horus the Elder entered existence. A god of the sky and divine kingship, his wings stretched across creation itself. He was a guardian, the embodiment of the heavens watching upon earth. And so, the gods of the next age were born. Ra watched from his throne, his decree undone, his will defied. But what could he do? These were days that did not belong to him, crafted beyond the reach of his command. Perhaps he was angered. Perhaps he was amused. The records do not say, but one thing was certain. the world had changed forever. Through wisdom, cunning, and sheer determination, Nut and Thot had rewritten fate itself. And from their defiance came the gods who would shape the future of both the divine and mortal realms. A lesson, hidden within the folds of time, that even the most powerful decrees can be undone, that even the mightiest gods can be outwitted, and that from the greatest obstacles, even greater destinies are born. Osiris was the golden ruler of Egypt, a king whose wisdom and kindness made the country into a paradise of order and wealth. During his rule, the people prospered. They learned how to work with the floods of the Nile and make soil produce wheat and barley. He laid down the laws of fairness and justice so that no one should suffer under the tyranny or cruelty of another. He taught the holy ways of the gods and thus gave the kingdom devotion and balance. His rule was a period of peace and harmony, where perhaps even nature itself aligned with his kind rule. But not all rejoiced in Osiris's greatness. In the shadows lurked his brother, Set, the god of storms, desert winds, and chaos. Where Osiris brought order, Set thrived in disorder. Osiris was loved by the people, and over time, Set became envious of his brother until he started to hate him. He wanted power, but not just power, recognition. He wanted to be the only name on people's lips. He wanted Osiris erased, his name forgotten, and Egypt plunged into darkness. Thus, he began to plot. Set's plan was subtle, yet elaborate. He called for a grand feast and invited Egypt's noblest lords. Osiris himself was on the guest list, and even Isis, the queen. It was a wonderful affair. The air was thick with laughter, and the scent of roasted meats and spiced wine filled the great hall. Musicians played, dancers whirled, and the guests that were gathered enjoyed the heat of the celebration without knowing treachery was just around the corner. When the celebration was at its peak, Set revealed a large wooden chest, enriched with gold and precious stones. The craftsmanship was unparalleled, and guests gathered around to admire it. He declared the chest was a prize, and the winner would be whoever fits into it exactly. One at a time, the guests try, but the chest is too big for some, too small for others. Then came Osiris, good-natured, trusting, and completely unaware that the trap was set and waiting for him. As soon as he lay inside, Set's followers leaped forward, slamming the lid shut and sealing it with molten lead. Before anyone could react, they cast the chest into the Nile. The feast turned to horror, and Egypt's king was lost to the water. The chest drifted down the river and eventually came to rest in the land of Byblos, where it was caught in the roots of a great tamarisk tree. Meanwhile, Egypt was plunged into chaos under Set's rule, and Isis, Osiris's devoted wife and sister, began a desperate quest to find him. Overcome with grief, but driven by love, Isis vowed to restore Osiris to the throne, and began a journey with devotion that would echo through eternity. Isis travelled across the Nile and through the deserts, commanding all beings with cries for help. Birds, fish, even the reeds whispered to her, directing her to Byblos, where the sacred tamarisk tree had grown around the chest, enveloping it in its branches. Over time, the chest was entirely consumed within its bark. Unaware of the divine secret within, the tree's beauty and strength caught the attention of the local king, who had it cut down and fashioned into a pillar for his palace. Unknowingly, they had brought Osiris's resting place into their home. So Isis took on the mortal form and eventually gained the queen's trust enough that she felt able to reveal her true character, and through her magic, regained the chest. She freed Osiris's body and travelled with him back to Egypt. However, her trials were not yet over, as Set would soon learn of her efforts and seek to undo them. Then when Isis returned to Egypt, Ever watchful and vengeful, Set discovered what she had done and was filled with rage. He would not even give Osiris the decency of a resting place. He took Osiris's body and tore it into 14 pieces, casting them across the land, so his brother could never be put together again. But Isis, undeterred, launched her second quest, this time in the company of her sister, Nephthys. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of funerary rites, then joined the sisters in their search for the fragments of Osiris's body. Every time one of Osiris's fragments was found, Isis performed the sacred rites to preserve and purify them. It was in these rites that Anubis taught her the secrets of mummification, thereby creating the first embalming process to restore wholeness to Osiris's body. Despite Set's efforts to prevent her, Isis was able to recover 13 of the 14 pieces. The one piece that would never be found was Osiris's phallus, which a fish in the waters of the Nile had snatched and swallowed. To restore him to wholeness, Isis used her magic once more and created a substitute. With Thoth's wisdom and Anubis's sacred rituals, Isis invoked the greatest magic the world had ever seen. She uttered words that were older than the gods themselves, casting spells of rebirth and divine desire. The air shook as her voice resounded across the heavens and then rumbled round the underworld. Osiris slowly stirred, his eyes reopened once more, this time with the knowledge of life and death. Though his resurrection was not to be for long, this moment was all she needed. Bound together by love and destiny, Isis was reunited with Osiris, and through their sacred union, a child was conceived. Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship and vengeance. More than an heir, he was a symbol of fate, destined to confront Set and rightfully restore balance to Egypt. Osiris, although he could not stay in the land of the living, had ensured his legacy. In Horus, his power lived on, and through his son's triumph, cosmic order would someday be re-established. Osiris was not able to come back into the world of the living, but his fate had not come to an end. It had merely changed. No longer just a king among men, he became greater still, the ruler of the afterlife. He went down into the Duat, the dark land of the dead, where the spirits of mortals travelled after they died. There, in the midst of the serpentine rivers and the infinite halls of judgment, Osiris seated himself as the eternal judge, overseeing the weighing of the hearts. In the hall of Ma'at, the dead souls appeared before him, their hearts balanced against the feather of truth on the scales. The ones who had lived righteously were received into the serene field of reeds, a paradise, where they existed eternally in peace. But those whose hearts were heavy with wickedness met a darker fate. Osiris governed the Duat, not by fear, but by balance. His role was the god of death, but also of renewal, proof that every end marks a new beginning. Through his journey, the great mysteries of life were made known to mortals. Moved by her lover's metamorphosis, Isis gifted humanity with the sacred rituals of mummification so that the deceased could take Osiris's journey, preserved forever. His legacy remained in the hearts of all who wished justice, in rituals that would lead souls safely through to the afterlife and on to the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. The death of Osiris plunged both the divine and mortal worlds into disarray. Egypt, once ruled under Osiris's just hand, was now in chaos. Set, the god of storms and disorder, had seized the throne, bringing strife and imbalance to the land. But when Isis, Osiris's devoted wife, had used her magic to conceive their son Horus in secret, hope was born. She raised him far from Set's reach, nurturing him with wisdom and the promise of justice. As Horus grew up, he learned about the fate of his father, and felt a weight of responsibility fall upon him. Not only did he want to avenge his father, but he also felt duty-bound to prove himself worthy to rule. He was no child of vengeance, but an embodiment of the divine order of Ma'at, and he longed to restore balance. Years went by and stiffened his resolution. Then, when the time was right, he stepped forward and staked his claim against Set for the throne of Egypt. The struggle between Horus and Set was unlike any battle before, for this was not simply a duel, but a war that lasted for decades. Each fight was not just personal, it was a cosmic conflict between order and chaos, stability and destruction. Even the gods themselves were torn apart. Some supported Set because he ruled by strength, while others backed Horus, whom they felt was the rightful heir. Their first battles were fought in the wilds of Egypt. Horus, swift as a falcon, struck most of the time from the skies, while Set fought with utter chaos and raw, unchained power. They clashed in the deserts, where sandstorms roared in response to their fury. They fought in the Nile, turning into mighty hippopotamuses, thrashing about, nipping and biting as the river churned beneath them. The very earth shook at their struggles, the echoes of their war shaping the very myths of Egypt. But neither god could claim victory through strength alone. Their powers were evenly matched, and the contest of brute force reached a stalemate. It was evident that the combatants would have to find another means of settling their dispute. Realizing that a war without end would destroy Egypt, the gods called a divine tribunal to settle the matter. Ra, the sun god and supreme judge, headed the council. The gods listened, while Set argued that strength and experience made him the natural ruler, while Horus, supported by his mother Isis, declared his rightful claim as the son of Osiris. But just as sheer strength alone was not the answer, such a dispute could not be resolved with words alone either. The gods therefore devised a series of trials to test the respective worthiness of each contender, based on wisdom, strength, and divine right. One of the most famous trials was the boat race. The two rivals were ordered to cross the Nile on vessels of stone. Set, full of confidence, carved a vessel from solid rock, believing his strength would carry him forward. But Horus, being cunning and tactical, built a wooden boat and coated it in white plaster, making it appear as stone. As the race began, Set's boat sank beneath the waves, while Horus's vessel sailed forward, proving that wisdom and ingenuity were as important as power. Another trial beneath the waters of the Nile placed Horus and Set once again as mighty hippopotamuses. They embarked on a brutal fight, holding each other down in an underwater battle, both trying to drown the opponent. Their struggle continued for days, neither yielding, their strength so evenly matched that the gods began to despair. Although Horus fought valiantly and justly, his uncle would not cease in his trying to tear him down. It was a battle as much of wits and guile as it was of strength. In one treacherous instant, Set tried to shame Horus in a symbolic act of dominance, but Horus outsmarted his uncle and turned the humiliation back upon him, showing to the gods his true nature. Ra, wearied by the endless struggle, was loath to declare a victor. He even entertained the notion of turning the throne over to Set, who by his strength was best suited to protect Egypt. But Thoth and Ma'at, gods of wisdom and justice, reminded him of the true nature of kingship, not brute power, but balance and order. At last, the gods arrived at a decision. Horus had proved himself not only in strength and guile, but also in persistence and righteousness. And after many trials, battles, and betrayals, the gods could no longer refute what was taking place. Horus had proved himself in every way. The tribunal pronounced him the rightful king of Egypt, and thus brought the long, embittered struggle to its close. He showed strength in combat, wisdom in strategy, and the endurance to withhold the deceit of Set. Defeated, Set was not cast away. The gods realized that chaos could never actually be destroyed because it was one of the opposing forces of order. So rather than punish Set further, the gods gave him another job. Set would guard the prow of Ra's solar bark and keep at bay a huge serpent called Apep, the embodiment of true chaos. Set's strength was still to be used for the gods, yet no longer at the expense of Egypt's tranquility. With Set gone from the throne, Horus ascended as the ruler of Egypt. The victory that Horus ensured was not just one of vengeance, but of justice in which restoration occurs. He became the living embodiment of Ma'at, truth, balance, and divine order. Ra's magnificent bark, embedded with gleaming jewels, glides silently west across the water, whose surface shimmers in the setting sun. Cool winds whisper around him, a stark contrast to the heat of the day, and everything falls calm as the first stars twinkle into existence. At the helm of his bark, Ra gazes ahead into the shadows. They seem to add more darkness, drawing him into the night. He knows that his journey has just begun. The horns of Nephthys' headdress reflected the final shimmers of the light as she sat perched on the cliffs above, wailing in sorrow, mourning the setting sun. As the bark sails into the first kingdom of the night, Ra calls upon Ma'at, the first goddess of the night, to guard his path. Keeping balance and order in their consideration, they navigate the ominous waters, where ancient spirits linger, preparing to greet the sun god on his nightly quest. Thus begins the adventure, shrouded in darkness, yet vivid by the glistening stars. As the first hour wanes and the shadows deepen, Ma'at emerges and rises gracefully into the air. Wings unfurl behind her, glistening in the fading light, and as she floats down to the water, her body begins to shift. When her transformation is complete, she settles beside Ra's bark as another vessel to accompany him on his journey. The boat that was Ma'at seemed to multiply in the water until two more vessels, one ferrying Hathor and the other Osiris, accompanied Ra, silently floating through the primeval waters of Nun. The soft winds, accompanied by a gentle whisper, echo all around, bringing them a sense of calm and peace. He lifts his gaze and draws in warm air, remembering that even here life continues to thrive, knowing everything is going to be fine. In the third hour of Ra's journey through the Underworld, the bark comes into the waters of Osiris. As they enter his kingdom, Osiris is seen settling into his great throne, his eyes fixed, ready for the work ahead of him. On the wind are whispers of the deceased awaiting their trial and judgment. Osiris presides over the weighing of hearts, a crucial moment where the souls are judged based on their deeds during their earthly lives. The four sons of Horus, each represented by the heads of different animals, are tasked with protecting the sacred organs which are to be tried in this judgment. The souls wait in silence for their fates to be decided, while Ra's presence ensures that the cycle of life and death continues unabated. Ra's golden bark, now transformed into a double-headed, fire-spitting serpent, slithers into Imhet, the desolate desert realm of Sokar, the mysterious hawk deity of the Underworld. Here, darkness is absolute, and it engulfs even the divine light of Ra. The sun god, bereft of sight, has to use the power of his voice to lead his crew through the inky void. Before them, a great sandpath winds treacherously, zigzagging across all three registers of the Underworld. This perilous route, a stark departure from the watery passages before, unites the realms, but presents a formidable challenge. Ancient, magical doors block his passage at every turn. The serpent bark writhes forward, its fiery breath the only light of this place of eternal night. It is Ra's voice booming through the emptiness that lights a beacon of hope amidst smothering gloom. As the fifth hour unwinds its shadowy wings, the domain of Sokar persists. The serpent bark continues its journey. Here, in this realm of paradox, opposites collide and coalesce. The primordial waters of Nun, embracing the arid sands of Sokar's desert. Above, on the uppermost register, Osiris's burial mound looms, a silent sentinel in the gloom. From its darkness, the sacred scarab Khepri will emerge, a promise of rebirth, a hint at Ra's ultimate resurrection. The solar bark encounters a narrow passageway, a cosmic bottleneck in the fabric of the Underworld. Friendly spirits of this region come to Ra's assistance, their ethereal forms straining in the effort of hauling the great vessel through the constricting channel. Below, an oval shape materializes in the murky depths, the cavern of Sokar. Within its confines, the hawk god himself sits at the centre of the lake of fire, flapping wildly, its eerie shadows dancing upon the cavern walls. Thus, Ra's journey continues, a delicate balance of death and rebirth, challenge and triumph, as he inches ever closer to the dawn that awaits beyond the veil of night. As the 6th hour unfolds, the underworld trembles with anticipation. Here, in the depths of night, the most pivotal moment of Ra's journey transpires. The body of the sun god, or perhaps Osiris himself, no longer bound in mummy wrappings, lies vulnerable yet protected. Khepri's scarab form hovers nearby, a symbol of imminent rebirth. The great serpent Mehen coils protectively around them, guardian of this sacred metamorphosis. Ra's bark once more glides upon the waters of Nun, where regenerative power flows like liquid starlight. The Ba of Ra, his very essence, reunites with his physical form in a cosmic embrace, merging with Osiris in a dance of death and rebirth. Light blooms in the darkness. A sun-disk crown materializes upon Ra's brow, a radiant testament to his renewed vigor. In this liminal space between life and death, the kings of Upper and Lower Egypt stand sentinel, silent judges of the recently departed who seek rebirth. The rekindling of Ra's light does not go unnoticed in the shadowy realm. Like moths to a flame, the forces of chaos are drawn to this celestial beacon. Apep, the great serpent of disorder, rears its terrible head. With malevolent purpose, it swallows the waters of Nun whole, a desperate bid to strand Ra's bark and smother Osiris's rebirth. But Isis, divine sorceress, is prepared. Her voice rings out, weaving a spell of protection around the solar vessel. Ra's journey continues unabated, defying the waterless void. Above, the enemies of Osiris writhe in torment, while below, the stars themselves take human form, faithful guides on Ra's path to resurrection. Fully regenerated, Ra stands triumphant upon his sacred bark, the darkness of death no longer clinging to his form. The trials of the underworld have tested his resolve, but with divine aid he has endured. Yet the journey is far from over. Ahead, 5 great doors loom, each a test of divine will and authority. These are not mere barriers of stone and wood, but thresholds of cosmic power, each guarding the way forward. Ra's voice, resonant with celestial command, rings out in the darkness, his words forming the keys to unlock the path. With each decree, a door swings open, granting passage through the depths of the Duat. On the fringes of this hour, nameless gods toil ceaselessly, weaving new garments from radiant threads, symbols of renewal and rebirth. These robes are not merely for Ra, but for all who will follow his path toward transformation. At the prow of the bark, 8 silent deities lean forward, their forms etched with divine purpose, straining to propel Ra ever closer to the surface world. The bark surges forward, no longer drifting passively, but propelled by 12 mighty oarsmen. Their muscles flex as they drive the vessel against the currents of the underworld, each stroke a defiance of stagnation and oblivion. The waters churn beneath them, swirling with unseen forces, as Ra's approach disturbs the order of the Duat. Before them stand 3 enigmatic idols, their expressions unreadable, their very presence an unspoken riddle. They observe a ritual unfolding, one of silent reverence and deep significance. Among the shades of the dead, divine figures move with purpose, carrying bundles of grain upon their backs. Gods, whose faces are obscured by the passage of time, distribute bread and beer to the deceased. This is not merely sustenance. It is a reaffirmation of care, a whisper of the world above reaching those long lost to shadow. The scent of grain, the tang of fermented drink, it is a bittersweet comfort, a promise that even in death one is not entirely abandoned. As Ra's journey nears its end, the air thickens with tension. The underworld has yielded much, but danger still lurks in the unseen spaces between realms. 12 oarsmen who once moved with practiced ease now bristle with weapons. Eyes sharp and unwavering, they scan the gloom, prepared for an ambush by Apep or other forces that resent the light Ra carries with him. Below, a heart-rending sight unfolds in the depths of the Underworld's black waters. From this abyss, where the drowned souls of the Forsaken have lingered, a divine hand extends. Horus, protector and sky god, leans from the bark, his gaze filled with quiet determination as he reaches into the gloom. One by one, he pulls lost spirits from the abyss, their spectral forms glistening with hope they had long forgotten. These are the ones denied proper rites, those who never felt the funeral pyre's flame or the touch of sacred oils. Yet here, at the edge of Ra's great passage, they are seen. They are lifted from despair, offered a path forward, a glimmer of redemption in the deepest depths of the Underworld. As the bark sails on, the lost souls linger in the wake of its light. The darkness of the Duat begins to break. Though the sun has not yet risen, the horizon ahead glows faintly, a whisper of dawn stirring on the edges of the unseen world. The warmth of the surface beckons, a promise Ra can now feel upon his divine skin. With the nearing of day, something miraculous occurs. Ra's eyes, once clouded by the weight of the Underworld, now fully heal. It is more than just the return of vision, it is the restoration of his vitality, his dominion, his very essence. To see is to command, to bring order from chaos. The gods who walk in darkness tremble, for Ra's full strength is nearly restored. Yet even in this moment of renewal, danger still lurks. In the lower realms, a colossal serpent stirs, its sinuous body gleaming in the dim light. This is no enemy, but a sacred guardian, Tuat, the great serpent of the Duat. 12 gods, solemn and unwavering, carry the glowing red solar disk, drawing it forth from the depths. As the bark nears, the serpent coils around its hull, forming an eternal circle, an Ouroboros of divine protection. The final hour approaches, the world above awaits, and Ra, reborn and whole, prepares to break the horizon. In the 12th hour, Ra's bark emerges from the mouth of the Underworld into a realm where the night begins to surrender to the dawn. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation as the first hints of light pierce through the thick veil of darkness. It's a moment of transformation where the cycle of night gives way to the promise of a new day. As Ra stands at the helm, his spirit invigorated by the challenges he has faced, and the once dominant shadows begin to recede, revealing a landscape shimmering with potential. In this hour, the serpent coiled around the bark is now transformed into a symbol of renewal and rebirth. It guides Ra toward the horizon, where the sun prepares to make its grand entrance. As they sail, Ra invokes the powers of creation, calling forth the energies of the universe to aid him in his transformation. Khepri, the small but mighty scarab beetle, emerges, embodying the essence of rebirth and the cyclical nature of life. And as he takes flight, his iridescent wings glimmering in the softening light, symbolizing the connection between death and new beginnings. Ra and Khepri merge in a radiant fusion, creating a powerful embodiment of the sun that signifies the dawn of a new day. Golden light floods the landscape, illuminating the way forward and chasing away the shadows that lingered from the night. The transformation is complete. Ra is reborn as Khepri, the morning sun, radiating warmth and brilliance. Ra looks back upon the path he has travelled, reflecting on the trials and tribulations faced throughout the night. This rebirth signifies not only the end of the long journey through the Underworld, but also the triumph of light over darkness. The landscape awakens with the dawn, creatures stir, flowers bloom, and the air fills with the sounds of life returning. Ra, now in his new form, ascends into the sky, illuminating the earth below with his radiant glow. The people of the land lift their eyes to the heavens, welcoming the sun and celebrating the arrival of a new day.